Okay, today's topic is the telecom industry and Industry 4.0, and especially how communication service providers can innovate, expand, and thrive with technologies like cloud, AI, and 5G. And to help me tackle this super exciting topic, I am joined today by Andrea Canessa, who is the Senior Director for the communications industry strategy at Oracle. Welcome, Andrea.
Thank you so much, Bernard.
It's so lovely to have you with us. Where are you joining us from today?
Well, I'm on the road, so I'm joining you from Lisbon.
Lisbon, lovely. Very good. So, what does it involve, your job? What do you do at Oracle?
Well, I'm responsible for the industry strategy for the communication industry. I've been at Oracle for a long time, always focused on software solution for the communication industries, done product strategy, product management, solution marketing, a little bit of everything. In the last 5 years, I've been part of the industry strategy team. We are supposed to define what Oracle should do to help communication service providers around the world with this investment and this product in the next 3 to 5 years. And we are looking a little bit forward, basically.
Very good. And working with lots of telecom companies all across the world, you will have a very good understanding of the industry and the space they are operating in. So, where are we today in the telco space? We are hearing about the 5G rollout, lots of changes happening in the industry. So, what's your overall assessment of the industry at the moment?
Well, we are definitely at a major inflection point. There is a lot of change, like you pointed out, Bernard. It's is what we all read and about 5G. Now, we as consumer, though, will not be the one that are most affected by 5G. The part that 5G will affect the most is business. Because, like we said in the title of our session today, 5G is one of the three components with the artificial intelligence and IoT that will redefine how business is done, that will power the Industry 4.0. And with that said, obviously, communication service provider need to address and to support with 5G, with their new 5G network, these addresses. It's not the consumer, me and you, that will be affected by 5G. You know, my phone, my plan with 4G is perfectly fine. It works fine. I get pretty much everything I want. Yes, there are consumer applications that can be important for 5G. You can think about virtual reality. You can think about other things. Most of them will be actually business application. And communication service providers have been spending big time on 5G. 5G is a big investment for them. They will need to find a way to produce money out of it. That's not trivial because it's not coming from the consumer market. I'm not paying more for my plan, and you are probably not paying more for your plan either, right? You're happy with your plan. So where is the money coming from? And the money can actually come from the B2B and B2B2X space.
Very good. So, what are some of the key trends then you are seeing that are affecting telecom companies?
Yeah, so obviously different region in the world, the trends are slightly different, but there are commonalities. And the commonalities around the world is the communication service provider. They have seen the traditional business going away. And when is the last time that you use your communication service provider to do a long distance call or an intercontinental call? I'm using what they are called the over-the-top provider. You know, the biggest provider of long distance call or intercontinental call is Skype. And when I call somebody in another country, most of the time I may use WhatsApp, I may use Telegram. I can use one of these over-the-top provider. They are free. They provide a service that is very friendly with their application. It's very useful. It's great user experience. So the service that the communication service provider used to provide is going away. So what can they do? They need to cut costs. They need to transform themselves into digital service provider. They need to fuel innovation. So they need an agility that they didn't have before.
Mm.
These were companies that were very structured. They used to be vertical integrating once upon a time, and they used to have their shops and everything in the middle. And now they see their traditional business taken away by the digital disruptors.
Mm.
So the other trend that I see that is very common is because of that, because the connectivity is becoming a commodity, right? And they need to generate new revenues. And where can I generate new revenues? Because every consumer use the cheapest rate possible, and everything you have an all you can eat plan. And where is the money that is used to come? And you hear a lot about RPU, average revenue per user, right? That in the comms space. So the RPU are continuously decline for connectivity. So where they can generate new revenues, that's a big trend, especially in the 5G space,
Mm.
because they need to generate new revenue for the new technology. And finally, the other one that is not only for comms, but is common to everybody, they need to become data-driven enterprises, right? Because you need to actually have your business driven by data, by your objective data. The good news is that communication service provider have an incredible amount of data, so they can actually have one of the largest amount of data, some of the largest data lakes in the world, and very, very valuable data. So these are the most common trends. Of course, there is always customer experience and create a common experience across users and across consumers and across all the services that they deliver.
Very good. Yeah, and I echo all of those. I see I work with a number of telecom companies currently looking at their strategy, and these are huge challenges for them, that their traditional market is basically eroding day by day, and they need to find new ways of working, new business models. So let's look at some of the trends you talked about maybe in a bit more detail. You talked about cutting costs, gaining agility, and fueling innovation. How can they do that in practice?
Well, cloud can help, and a provider like Oracle can definitely help. The IT used to be a big cost for communication service provider. We are an IT company. Oracle is obviously an IT company, so it's that one with cloud. Actually, they can considerably reduce cost. We have example of different clients that basically with client adoption moving their what is called in comms OSS and BSS, operation support system and business support systems, on a cloud platform instead of on-premises platform. They dramatically cut their costs. They also adopted software as a service products that can be in the ERP, in the CX space, but also in more traditional BSS and OSS spaces. So they can run their BSS and OSS spaces on cloud platform instead of on-premises platform, and that can actually help them. Why? Because they will pay only for what they need. Not only, since their business is changing and they need to reinvent themselves, that will give them also the agility that they need, so they can actually start an activity, and if it works, a new activity, a new type of service, and if it works, they can scale fast. And if it doesn't work, they can fail fast. So it's a complete shift in their mindset, obviously, but that shift in the mindset can actually be enabled by a cloud platform. That is basically cutting cost and gaining agility. And obviously, the other trends are a little more complex, but we can talk about that too.
Yeah, so the second trend you talked about was that they need to expand their revenue model. They need to find new ways of generating income. Have you got any ideas of what they might want to think about?
Yeah, I mean, I see, and we see a lot of trends, and we talk with clients continuously. And we recently have some meetings with some of the major communication service providers around the world, and we ask them where they see the biggest opportunities, and to go and to expand beyond connectivity, to become something more than just connectivity provider. One of them was a differentiated connectivity. So connectivity that you and me are using or that has been traditionally provided nowadays can be differentiated, like you can provide connectivity as a service, you can provide 5G private network, 5G SA. So these are services on top of the traditional connectivity the communication service provider can actually deliver at a premium. They also create an infrastructure on top of that they can actually expand beyond connectivity. What does it mean? When we started this conversation, we said that we are at an inflection point. Why? Because we are at the point in which you have 5G, AI, and IoT that they will come together to enable what sometimes some people call an Industry 4.0. And communication service provider can play a big role there. And the role is not only to give the differentiated connectivity with the 5G private network, the 5G SA, and the connectivity as a service that is needed actually by this Industry 4.0, but also provide maybe partnering with the cloud provider like us, like Oracle, to provide also the platform that are needed to support these new type of services. And this platform, since the new type of services need to be created not necessarily by the communication service provider, but they will be created by enterprises, they will be created by startups, they will be created by government agencies. And they need to be a very flexible and agile platform that where you can start small and expand big as soon as you grow and you see the opportunity to grow. And cloud is actually a great platform for that. From that perspective, we actually recently have several partnerships that happen between Oracle and some of the major communication service providers around the world. And that's the case, for example, with Telefónica España, with Airtel, and with Team Nouvel. They all basically deliver our Oracle platform in order exactly to enable both in their region for Telefonica Spain, for Team Nouvel is Italy, and for Airtel is India, to enable both enterprises and government agencies to move in this new type of services.
Very good. And then the other trend you talked about was becoming a more data-driven company. This is something that applies to all companies, I guess, and is pretty clear of what organizations need to do in this space. They need to make sure they collect the right data, they store it appropriately, they give themselves and their partners access to this data so they can actually use it as the lifeblood that it is today. You were talking about some customer examples. Can you share some client success stories, some
Yeah.
ways they have actually used the technology to innovate and do some of the transformative things we've just talked about?
Yeah, absolutely. So the example that I shared earlier on was, for example, on the cutting cost and create agility. We have great example with Intel in Chile, or with Team Brazil. They both adopted the Oracle cloud platform, and Team Brazil next to another vendor platform, and Microsoft, because we have interconnect with them. And they basically run and move a lot of their existing systems on our Oracle cloud infrastructure. That's what happened with Intel. On the case of Team Brazil, they moved several of their CRM. I mean, they've been planning to move them all eventually, and they move also their custom billing system onto Oracle. And with interconnect, they can actually between Oracle and Microsoft Azure, they can actually easily interact between the two clouds for the system that are they reside on the two different clouds. Those are the example of the agility. There are many examples. The example that of the new revenue streams of partnership that they basically partner with us to provide to enterprises new type of services to enable the new type of services. I mentioned them before. There are also other examples like Dish Network that are basically using our 5G core application in order to enable also the enterprises that new type of differentiated connectivity that actually bring value to a communication service provider for the targeting again enterprises. Finally, we have many examples of clients that move to software as a service application on the ERP space, on the CX space, and so on. What we don't see yet, and we will see soon, is moving further down. The differentiated connectivity, the beyond connectivity that we have seen for now is mostly to see a platform to enable, to provide connectivity and the platform to somebody else. Eventually, that somebody else will need more. Because if you are creating an industry 4.0, that one require business processes that will need to run, and business processes need application and industry specific application. A vendor like Oracle that has a very rich portfolio of industry specific application can actually deliver a lot from that perspective. Again, we are talking about a new business model in which the communication service provider, from our perspective, doesn't become necessarily anymore a client, but more of a partner. And together with Oracle, we can actually deliver more value to the enterprises that are our common clients.
Very good. And you work with so many different telecom companies, and you speak to their leadership teams, and you see which ones are successful at tackling some of those challenges and innovating, and you see others that are struggling. So what would you say are some of the biggest challenges, or almost some of the roadblocks and barriers that are stopping organizations from tackling some of the big challenges we talked about? And what, on the flip side, what would you say are some of the enablers that will help organizations succeed on this journey?
Yeah, so communication service provider, they have a lot of value. And because they have clients, large client bases, they are service oriented, they're incredibly to believe. For the many years, their NPS has been one of the lowest. But after the pandemic hit us, actually they went pretty well, believe it or not. We all started to use more connectivity, and their NPS and theirs went actually up. So they know how to deliver services, and they also have a presence on the territory, with the towers, with the shops, with the installation crews. So they have a lot of things. Because of that, this is one of the big advantages that they have to move in this industry 4.0 model, and to deliver services for the enterprise, because and these services can go from everywhere, from manufacturing to healthcare. You think about connected health. And now the challenge is that they don't have expertise in the specific industries, and they may not have the knowledge and or the product in the particular industry that are required. So they will need to partner. That is a challenge, because traditionally they were companies that they have been doing things on their own. Once upon a time, they were completely vertically integrated company. They were doing everything from, and now they are much less of a vertically integrated company, but they still do a lot. Now they are going to move to a B2B2X model, and that's a challenge because they need to partner. But business evolves. The other challenge, obviously, is they have been traditionally very rigid companies, and so culturally embracing a startup kind of mentality, because nobody knows which one will be the killer application. Nobody knows which one will be the Uber or the or of the that was for 4G. For the 5G will be in the virtual reality space, will be on the automatic manufacture, on the industry 4.0 for manufacturing, will be on the connected health. It's difficult to predict. So since it's difficult to predict, you need to have a startup mentality, and that means that you need to try. And if things work, great, and if things don't work, kill it. But if they work, you need to scale fast. To do that, cloud is a very good match. We can help, but you also require a different mentality, a startup mentality. That's not typical in the DNA of a communication service provider. What we have seen in a few well, it's more than a few, in several communication service providers, they recognize their limit, and so they create companies, spun-off companies that are not part of their own main communication service provider that is very rigid, very structured, that provide the connectivity. But these new companies are actually targeted to create the new revenue streams and to basically generate and to be run as a startup with a very different mentality. So that will be a challenge, obviously.
Yeah, wow. I mean, any telecom company listening here must realize that they have never been in a position like today. And you talked about this inflection point that they're in now, that there are huge challenges to their business model. There are huge technological challenges they need to tackle. There are cultural challenges that you talked about becoming more entrepreneurial. So huge challenges ahead and huge opportunities. So this is a super, super exciting space to be in. Looking into the future then, let's say we look 5 or 10 years ahead, what would be your predictions, your hopes? What are you seeing? What are you fearing?
Well, I think that the communication service provider will need to leverage their strength, which is obviously they provide the connectivity, move it to a differentiated connectivity. It cannot be anymore this traditional connectivity we used to provide. We are not driving anymore the car that our grandfathers used to drive, right? Cars are sophisticated with the navigation system. It used to be that you try to turn on the engine car and 2 out of 3 times it doesn't start. Now you press the button and all start. Very different experiences, right? So that means that obviously they need to evolve their connectivity, but that is the strength too. That is, and they what they need to do it actually from 5 years from now. I think their business will be different because connectivity will be something that is actually the foundation, but it's not their main source of income. What I think will be happen also is that there will be much more sharing of networks. Traditionally, each communication service provider have their own networks. You don't see car manufacturing building freeways. Freeways are built and they are common, and so can be network and they can be shared. You can start seeing some of that. You can see that some communication service provider join forces in building some of the 5G towers and the 5G cells. It happened in several countries, and I think that one will change. The other part is that will change dramatically is they need to embrace partnership. They need to create an ecosystem of value. And so at that point, they will become an enabler and a center place that basically can create a marketplace where different entrepreneurs, startups can join, gain the connectivity, gain the resources that the communication service provider can make available to them. And they may be also from a technology vendor like Oracle, but provided by the telecommunication service provider. And then the startup can actually invent and create and thrive. And that one definitely is the future of the communication industry.
Wonderful. And anyone who wants to learn more, I believe you've got Oracle Live coming up on June 21st at 12 p.m. EDT. Do you want to share a little bit more about that?
Yeah, absolutely. Please join us. It's about distributed cloud for the telecommunication industry, and it's you will have product management from Oracle, covering that topic. Is a very important topic. Cloud is not, it cannot be centralized. It needs to be distributed, and is distributed all over where is needed. So workflow need to be executed where they are needed. Think about healthcare, connected health. Think about automatic self-driving cars. Data need to be processed closer to where is needed. One of the important things that we probably didn't cover in many details is the importance of data. Like I said, they need to be driven to become data-driven enterprises. The challenge is that they face there is that their system to manage data are probably not what they need today, because they are about to get an incredible explosion of data tsunami with 5G. The amount of data that will be transmitted and used by these new type of services, this new type of Industry 4.0 services is huge. And in order to deal with that, they will need systems that can scale fast, and they are very cost effective. So for managing that. Also, their cloud can help, and hybrid cloud can help, and definitely a distributed cloud is the solution for that. And that probably is one of the main areas that you should attend our Oracle Live on June 21st at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.
Perfect. Yes, and we will try to stick a link to this into the chat, and also a link to a dedicated website where you can find out more about Oracle's tech or Oracle's telecom services and solutions. So thank you very much. Thank you, Andrea, for your time today. That was super interesting. An industry that is truly being transformed at the moment, tackling huge challenges. Anyone who wants to re-listen to this conversation or many other really super exciting conversations on future technology and business trends, head to my YouTube channel or listen on my podcast. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Bernard.